Conversations with Buddha, a fictional dialogue based on biographical facts, by Joan Duncan Oliver. Foreword by Annie Lennox. Narrated by Pamela Almond and Manish Dongardive, with Tony Fruiton.
My first significant encounter with Buddhism was vivid and unforgettable. Years ago, when I was a student in London, a friend took me to see a group of Tibetan monks chanting and playing traditional ceremonial instruments. I was fascinated by the cacophonous sounds of clashing cymbals juxtaposed against high-pitched wind instruments like oboes gone mad, all underscored by a backwash of primordial sound. To top it all, the monks were wearing a fabulous combination of medieval-style maroon robes, set off with yellow-pointed headgear. I felt I'd encountered something ancient and mystical, even though I had little clue as to the ritualistic meaning of what was going on. I've always been drawn to otherness. The idea of a Buddhist monk or nun sitting for hours in seated meditation has always intrigued me. At first, my response was, why on earth would anyone want to do that? Later on, I think I began to understand it a little better. I wasn't brought up in any particular religion or spiritual tradition, and I believe this was an advantage in a certain way. I have always felt free to explore possibilities without being too much encumbered by those terrible burdens of dogmatically informed fear and guilt that have so badly affected many people. Eastern literature attracted me. I came across the poems of the Chinese poet Lao Tzu in metaphysical bookstores. I looked at Zen texts too, the koans and haiku. I wondered if by any chance I might discover the meaning of existence through the combination of words laid out succinctly but obscurely before me. Over the years, I've chosen much of my reading material from the great Buddhist communicators, people like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and Pema Chodron, among many others. I like to think of myself as being open to wisdom wherever I find it, rather than attaching myself to a particular group or sect. Although I've had a few close encounters along the way, I'm wary of the cult of personality surrounding many teachers and gurus. On the other hand, I recognise that a charismatic teacher is, for many, an essential part of their development. We can all aspire to embracing peace and love, but in this world of temporary and unpredictable existence, what we often engender instead is a state of constant fearfulness. No matter how we direct our energies, we can't escape suffering in one form or another. Our desires bring no contentment, even when they're fulfilled. Buddhism can offer ways of dealing with all this, compassion being the fundamental key. When things get dark and hard to handle, Buddhist philosophy can be inspirational, with a simple reminder to breathe, to go easy on the day, moment by moment, to be mindful if we can. As Pema Chodron so succinctly put it, Buddhism offers us the option of learning how to be comfortable with the notion of insecurity.
Introduction. We know him as the Buddha, the Awakened one of the world's greatest spiritual leaders. He wasn't a god, but an ordinary mortal, born Siddhartha Gautama 2,500 years ago in northern India. His humanity speaks to us today. He suffered as we do, then by his own efforts found the key to liberation from the bonds of desire, hatred, and ignorance. As Westerners living in relative prosperity, we can identify with this man who had it all: love, success, money, talent, privilege, but set it aside to search for something deeper and more enduring. How did he do it? What did he learn? If the Buddha were here now, how might he explain the truths he uncovered? Sit down with us, and for the next hour or so, the Buddha's wisdom is yours for the asking. The Buddha, circa 563 to circa 483 BC. His life in short. The earth trembles. Lions and tigers, serpents and scorpions grow tame. Diseases fall away from the sick. Humans shower one another with kindness. Such marvels herald a wondrous event, the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, who became the spiritual teacher known as the Buddha. Legend has it that Mahamaya, Siddhartha's mother, was forewarned she would give birth to a Mahapurusha, a great man. In a dream, she was transported by heavenly spirits to a plateau high in the Himalayas, where a magnificent white elephant pierced her side with its tusk and entered her womb. The dream, interpreted by Brahmin priests, prepared her for the arrival of a hero. The child was born not in the city of Kapilavastu, where Mahamaya lived with her husband Suddhodana, ruler of the Sakya clan, but in a grove of trees in the park at nearby Lumbini. Choosing the noblest tree, Mahamaya grasped a branch for support and gave birth painlessly, standing up. It is said that the newborn sprang to his feet, took 7 strides, and surveying the 4 directions, cried, "I am born for enlightenment, for the good of the world." Her sacred task complete, Mahamaya died within the week. The child's care fell to her sister, Mahapajapati, Suddhodana's second wife. Word of the birth spread quickly. The seer, Asita, rushed to the infant's side and saw that he bore the 32 auspicious marks of a Mahapurusha, among them the imprint of a wheel on the sole of each foot. "This one is unsurpassed," Asita said. With tears in his eyes, he prophesied, "This prince will touch the ultimate self-awakening. He will set the wheel of Dharma rolling out of compassion for all." Suddhodana and Mahamaya named their son Siddhartha, he who accomplishes. Brahmin priests predicted the boy would become either a world-turning monarch, a Chakravartin, or a Buddha, an awakened one. One priest said that if Siddhartha saw 4 things, a sick man, an old man, a dead man, and a monk, then he would renounce worldly existence for a holy life. The 4 sights. Suddhodana was determined to keep his son on the universal monarch track. He filled Siddhartha's life with every possible delight, shielding him from misery of any kind. "I lived in total refinement," the Buddha later said of his youth. "A white sunshade was held over me day and night to protect me from cold, heat, dust, dirt, and dew." Siddhartha had at his disposal not 1 but 3 palaces, one for the winter, summer, and rainy seasons. Tall, dark-haired, and handsome, he possessed wealth and promise. But when it was time to wed, the parents of prospective brides were wary. How could anyone so pampered ever lead a kingdom? Chagrined, Suddhodana immersed his son in the warrior arts. In one version of the tale, Siddhartha was given a giant bow to string, a feat that usually took several men. He not only strung the bow with ease, but outshot the other archers. Reassured of Siddhartha's prowess, the local gentry presented their daughters at the palace for his approval. As each young hopeful came forward, Siddhartha reached into a coffer of jewels and chose a bauble for her. Finally, the last young woman stood before him. Alas, the chest was empty. The assembly held its breath. What would he do? Not missing a beat, Siddhartha took off his own emerald necklace and slipped it over the young woman's head. This was the lovely Yashodhara, who became his wife and bore him a son, Rahula. Siddhartha's life was now complete, yet still he grew restless and yearned to taste the world. One day he persuaded his charioteer, Chandra, to drive him out beyond the palace gates. The gods decided it was time to set the future Buddha's destiny in motion. On entering Kapilavastu, Siddhartha spotted a gray-haired man. "What is this?" he asked.